About 24 hours away, the 150th Run for the Roses at Churchill Downs. To help us break it all down, we welcome in Jeremy Plonk on the Progressive Guest Line, owner of Horse Player Now, the racing industry's lead fan education and player development website. You can follow him on X at Horse Player Now. Welcome in, and how excited are you that we are just around the corner from Kentucky Derby Day?
This is like Christmas if you're a horse player. I mean, we're all excited about this. I've been playing and betting the Kentucky Derby since I was a kid, going around the cafeteria in middle school, getting money from my teachers to see who we'd put tickets together on in the Derby in the 80s. So for me professionally, I'm in my about 32nd year of covering the Kentucky Derby, going back to the early 90s, and it doesn't lack for excitement every year. And we've got a superstar this year in Fierceness. So anytime you have a big horse coming into the big race, it just feels bigger.
Jeremy, before we get into your picks, everybody's talking about the weather, and I want to get your opinion on this. How worried should we be about it? Are we getting too much? Are we talking about this too much at this point, and how does it change basically our opinion as we move forward if the weather goes one way or the other?
Well, it always seems to rain on Derby Day, right? I mean, it just seems to be the way that it is. But the horses who are at the top of this class have already run on sloppy tracks. I mean, you guys in the desert may or may not know, but it's been raining all over the east and the southeast all winter long. So a lot of these horses in their preparatory races, we call them prep races, have run on sloppy tracks already. So really the ones who have asserted their form on a sloppy track are going to hold that form when they run on it again. And there's not a lot of horses that are inexperienced over it. So I don't think it really changes the opinion too much. What we could have tomorrow, though, is a drying out racetrack, and that's a lot different. A sloppy track, they kind of press it down with a squeegee behind the tractor, and all the water stays on top. So the track's kind of really hard, and the horses skip over the top of it. In a drying out track, they use the rake and the harrows. They open it up, and it gets very tiring and deep, like running in the deep sand in the beach. Then stamina comes into play. So if you have a horse who's a little bit questionable at the distance or doesn't finish their races with a lot of vigor, it could be a tiring out racetrack, and then you really want to lean on stamina and horses who may have that, sustained running style. So it could have an impact that way. I think we're more likely looking at the weather forecast of what I've seen. Handicappers aren't any better than forecasters a lot of times, as you know. But from what I've seen, it looks like we have a better chance of having a drying out racetrack tomorrow than we do a really sloppy, wet racetrack.
So, Jeremy, with that in mind, and you mentioned the prep races, what are you looking for from specific horses and jockeys ahead of the Kentucky Derby? What's most important before you're placing these bets?
Well, typically, style-wise, you either want to be right up in the first three down the backstretch, right up into the mix of the race, or coming from way back. The horses who are kind of like 4th, 5th through 12th, they rarely win the Kentucky Derby. The race doesn't fall into their lap. It's usually a horse who just dominates near the front or a horse who comes from well off the pace. Fierceness is the favorite. I expect him to be up near the front. He should be first, second, or third down the backstretch. He may not be right on the lead, but he'll be within a length or two of it if he's going to run his race. So he's the horse from the front. The second favorite in the race is Sierra Leone. He's going to come maybe from 20th. He's in post 2. He's to the inside, and the entire field is going to come down on him early in the race. He has no early speed at all. So his jockey, Tyler Gaffleone, is going to go far back and just try to circle the field, work his path through. So it's really an interesting race where the two best punchers in this race, one is early, one is late. We may not see them in the same frame at any point until the last 12, 15 seconds of the race, and then it could get exciting. But they have definitely completely different running styles. I look for Fierceness, though, with his jockey, John Velasquez, who's won the Derby 4 times, to be really effective near the front of the pack, because Velasquez's 4 wins in the Derby, 3 of them have almost been essentially wire to wire. When he's on the best horse in the race, he's not afraid to just go take the race to the others. And this horse is really interesting with Fierceness because I know a lot of people aren't necessarily horse racing fans when we get to the Kentucky Derby. The comparison with Fierceness is he's your starting pitcher, he's Roger Clemens, and for the closer, he's Mariano Rivera. He's as good at the beginning as he is at the end, and that's very difficult for most racehorses. Most are either really good at the beginning and then lose starch, or they're slow at the beginning and sustain their run the entire race. He's good early and late, so if he runs his race, they're in big trouble.
Jeremy, that's all fine and dandy, but we can't make any money off of this guy, right? Like, so what do we do? What do we do? I mean, 5-2, this is not sexy. We need something sexy in our account, so we got to get into the exotic markets, right?
Correct. That's exactly right. And I always say that's why God created the exotic wagers, right? For situations just like this, where we get into, you can't make money. Look, if you bet this horse at 5-2 in the Kentucky Derby, just turn in your card, right? I mean, we don't. It's not a great bet at 5-2, but the superfecta is the right bet in the Kentucky Derby for a lot of reasons. But it's a $1 minimum bet for each combination. And when you look at a 20-horse field in the Kentucky Derby, it's unlike any field size we have in America. Unlike your sports where you're playing against the house a lot of times and fixed odds, you're playing pari-mutuel here in horse racing, which means the losing tickets pay the winning tickets. That's the way the system works. Well, in the superfecta, with 20 horses in a race, there's over 115,000 combinations that can come in for the superfecta. You would think just the top 4. It can't be that many, but do the math. 20 times 19 times 18 times 17. That's all the different ways it could come in. More than 115,000 different ways. That's how we get our value. So even if Fierceness wins, we could easily have a superfecta that pays into thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. And that's the way I'm going to try to attack. I'm going to look at it as, look, we got a free space on top, right? Now I got to figure out who's going to run second, third, and fourth, and now we can make some serious money.
I love it. I'm a trifecta box person, but we can get more bang for our buck with that superfecta. So I am all in on tailing you from that standpoint. Is there, though, any long shot that speaks to you? Any horse you feel like could potentially upset the apple cart?
Resilience. He's a horse who last time won in New York, the Wood Memorial. He's trained by a Hall of Famer, Bill Mott, one of the greatest horsemen in the history of the game. Resilience is a horse I've been high on all year. He ran against Sierra Leone down in Louisiana. He got beat about 3 lengths by that horse in February, but he came back since then to win when they went their separate paths in their final prep race, and he looks like he's improving at the right time. He's training tremendously. Bill Mott's got a filly named Just FYI in the Kentucky Oaks today. She's training just as well. They were training so well together, they had to separate the two of them so that they didn't outwork each other in the mornings. I really think Resilience is going to run a good race at a big price. And the other one is a horse named Domestic Product. He's a stablemate trained by Chad Brown, the same trainer as Sierra Leone, but he's going to be about 10 times the price of Sierra Leone. And I've got a feeling he might actually outfinish his stablemate in here. He's been put away since March, since he won a race down in Tampa Bay. He is training tremendously up to this race. I think Domestic Product is a horse at a price who could pop in there as well. So if I get Fierceness on top and I get one of those 2 prices in the second slot, now it starts to get interesting. How many horses can we afford to use third and fourth?
Jeremy, let's say we're coming in, someone's parachuting in, not big time horse bettor. They got about $100. What is, how are we breaking down $100?
I still want to play the superfecta, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is a once a year thing, and not to belittle amounts of money or anything like that. But if you got $100 to bet, what do you need 350 for? You know, like I just never understand that. The grind, I get it if you're a sports bettor and if you're playing, multiple games a day, a week, that sort of thing like that. But if you're coming into horse racing for a one-shot deal, let's make something. Let's go after it and see if the Kentucky Derby can't, make your career in terms of betting the horses. I'd still go after the superfecta. Again, with the one horse on top, you can take 4 or 5 in the second spot. Sierra Leone's probably going to rally and finish third or fourth in this race, right? He's going to come from 20th, but I just don't think he's going to get there. So if you could use, Fierceness in the first spot, Sierra Leone third or fourth, couple long shots in there in the mix, you've got a chance to put a lot of combinations on your ticket for $100 and really have a chance, I'm serious, to make, a couple thousand to $10,000 to $25,000, even with the favorite win in this race on a $100 bet.
Jeremy, you're awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy all the action out there at Churchill Downs.